Just try to imagine a rather difficult truth to accept. While many Americans at age 65 are spending thousands of dollars on gym memberships, struggling to touch their toes while their backs are already creaking. Over in Okinawa, there's a 92-year-old woman who tends her garden every morning, climbs stairs without holding the railings, and for decades has barely needed to visit a doctor for joint pain. It doesn't seem fair at all, does it? What really struck me, as a doctor who's been working with people over 60 in America for more than 20 years, is this: elderly Japanese people actually have the lowest hip fracture rates among all developed nations. Studies show they fall about 67% less often compared to seniors in the West. And here's where it gets really interesting. A team of researchers from Harvard spent 3 years studying the morning routines of people living in the blue zones of Japan, places where staying healthy past 90, even reaching 100, is completely normal. What they discovered was this: these elderly people aren't going to the gym, they're not doing complicated yoga poses, they're not lifting heavy weights. Instead, they're doing just 5 very simple movements, almost meditative in nature, for less than 20 minutes each morning. And yet these movements help them maintain strength, flexibility, and balance well into their 80s and 90s. But the very first movement on that list, which I'll share with you in a moment, has been shown to reduce the risk of falling by as much as 43% in just 8 weeks. That you've almost certainly never heard of it by the name the Japanese use. Before we dive into each movement, I want to ask you to do one small thing. Scroll down to the comments section and tell me, how old are you and where are you watching this from? I'm Dr. Robert Ellis. I really do want to know who's with me here, and I read almost every single comment. That if you can, please hit subscribe and leave a like on this video. It helps these videos reach more seniors who really need information like this. All right, if you're ready, let's begin. In 20 years of working with American patients over 60, I've noticed something that happens again and again. It's predictable, almost like clockwork. Many people come into my office with the same thing. They tell me, "Doctor, I know I need to exercise. I bought a gym membership. I tried yoga. I even bought a treadmill. But I just can't keep it up." Have you ever felt that way? You sign up for a program, you're excited for the first few weeks, then you get tired, you get sore, you get frustrated, and everything goes back to normal that we Americans grew up hearing: no pain, no gain, no pain, no progress. So when I tell a patient, we're going to start by rotating your ankles, right there in bed before you even get out of it, they usually laugh. One of my patients, Margaret, she was 68, she told me straight up, "Doctor, that sounds like something for kids. I need something more challenging." I looked at her and said, "No, Margaret, what you need isn't something stronger. What you need is something you can do every single day for the next 10 years. She was reluctant, but she tried it. 6 weeks later, she came back, sat down in a chair, and stood up again, without using her hands to push herself up. She looked at me, and her eyes got a little watery. I don't remember the last time I could stand up this easily. We tend to undervalue simple things because we've been taught that complicated means worthwhile. But science and our bodies don't work that way. Japanese people don't have magic bodies. They just do small things, the right things, and they do them consistently over many years. Now, I want to walk you through both worlds, the world of real-life stories and the world of numbers that science has actually measured. Let's start at the foundation of your body, your feet and ankles. The Japanese call the very first movement ashikobi undo, which simply means ankle mobilization. What's remarkable is that they start this movement right there in bed in the morning. When you first wake up, instead of jumping out of bed in a rush, you stay lying down. You lift one leg slightly off the mattress, not much, just a few inches. Then you start rotating your foot in circles, slowly, feeling each angle of the joint. 10 rotations clockwise, 10 counterclockwise. After that, you point your toes away from you as far as they'll go, hold for 3 seconds, then pull them back toward your shin. Hold for 3 seconds again. Repeat about 15 times. Then switch to the other foot. That IT sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? But here's what science says about this. A study at the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology followed 1,400 elderly people for 5 years. What they found was this: People with poor ankle flexibility had a risk of falling that was 2.3 times higher compared to those with good ankle flexibility. Your ankle is like the foundation of a house. If the foundation is weak, everything built on top of it will be affected. Inside your ankle are many receptors, sensory receptors, that send signals to your brain telling you where you are in space and how to stay balanced. When you don't wake up these receptors every day, they become sluggish. Your balance gets worse. Something interesting that many Japanese elders do. They use a small towel wrapped around the front of their foot, then they pull the towel toward them while pushing their foot against it. Just 2 minutes on each side. A study at Kyoto University showed that just 2 minutes of resistance like this every morning improved balance by 31% after 6 weeks. I had a patient named James who was 72. He told me, "Doctor, I'm really afraid of falling. I don't dare go into the backyard alone anymore. Even stepping over a doorway threshold makes me anxious." We started with exactly this movement just in bed. He did it every morning, never missed a day. 0.8 weeks later, he came back and told me he'd been able to go into the backyard alone, walk on uneven ground, and not feel worried the way he used to. If you're watching this right now, ask yourself, could you spend 3 minutes tomorrow morning rotating your ankles before you get out of bed? If the answer is yes, then leave a comment saying, "Tomorrow I'm starting with the ankles." I want to see you actually commit to this. After waking up the foundation of your feet, the Japanese move up to the central hub of your posture, your shoulders and upper back. The second movement is about pulling your 2 shoulder blades together for better health. You simply sit on the edge of your bed or a firm chair, feet flat on the floor. Rest your hands lightly on your thighs. Take a deep breath in through your nose. As you inhale, slowly draw your 2 shoulder blades together like you're trying to hold a pencil between them. Hold for about 5 seconds while breathing normally, then exhale and relax. That's 1 repetition. It takes only about 8 seconds per repetition, and you repeat this about 20 times. This might sound simple, but the impact goes much deeper than you'd think. Many of my patients arrive with what we call forward slouch, shoulders rolled forward, head jutting out in front of you, upper back curved. They complain of neck pain, shoulder pain, tingling in their hands. But what they don't realize is that this posture doesn't just cause pain, it directly affects how well you can breathe. When your chest is compressed like this, your lungs can't fully expand. Less air comes in. Your brain gets less oxygen. You feel tired. You can't concentrate. Your memory starts to decline. A study at Osaka Medical University involving 800 people over 60 showed something remarkable. With just this shoulder blade exercise, done consistently for 6 months, neck and upper back pain decreased by an average of 54%. Not only that, but lung capacity, the maximum amount of air a person can breathe in, increased by 23%. And here's something fascinating. People who maintained better posture through this exercise scored 18% higher on cognitive tests. I remember a patient named Patricia, 70 years old, asking me once, "Doctor, why do people in the West choose the harder way?" I smiled and said, "Patricia, because we believe that if it's not hard, it's not worth doing." But what we don't understand is that simple is often more effective than complicated. Once you get used to pulling your shoulder blades together, you can level up. As you squeeze your blades, slowly raise your arms out to the sides like you're making a snow angel, bringing them up to shoulder height. Hold for 3 seconds, then lower them back down. This movement activates not just your back muscles, but also your rotator cuff muscles, which are crucial for shoulder stability. Tomorrow morning, after you've done the ankle work in bed, sit up and spend another 2 or 3 minutes on the shoulders. That's how the Japanese layer movements on top of each other, from bottom to top, from small to large. The third movement is more fluid, but extremely important for your spine, the structure that keeps you upright and lets you move throughout the day. The Japanese have a beautiful image for this. They say the spine should move like a wave on water, not like a dry stick. They call this movement spinal waves. You sit near the edge of a chair, not leaning back, with your feet firmly on the floor. Imagine your spine as a string of beads, with each vertebra being one bead. You begin by gently rolling your pelvis forward slightly, so your lower back around a little bit. Then slowly, that movement travels upward through your mid-back, through your upper back, and finally through your neck like a wave moving upward. Then you reverse it. Push your pelvis back slightly, creating a gentle curve in your lower back, and let that wave move back down. Point one complete cycle. Up and down. Takes about 6 to 8 seconds at T first. Many of my patients find this strange. They're used to their spine being almost locked all day, sitting, standing, lying down, but very rarely moving each section independently. That a study from the National Center for Geriatrics in Japan, with 1,200 elderly people, showed this. Those who did spinal waves daily had 38% less lower back pain and maintained about 2.3 more inches of height compared to those who didn't. That's not just about looking taller. Maintaining height means your spinal discs are healthier, less compressed. The research showed that just 5 minutes of this movement increased disc hydration by 12% immediately after exercise. That might not sound like much, but for people over 60, it's the difference between discs that are drying out and shrinking and discs that stay plump and flexible. I remember a female patient, 74 years old, who'd lost nearly 1.5 inches of height over a few years. She had persistent lower back pain, difficulty walking. After 3 months of doing spinal waves consistently, along with the ankle and shoulder movements, she got back nearly half an inch of height. More importantly, she told me, "Doctor, my back isn't something I'm afraid of anymore. It feels alive again." If you've gotten used to the first 2 movements, this is the next piece you can add after about 2 weeks. The fourth movement takes us to perhaps the single most important area for walking independently, the hip joint. The Japanese call this hip circles, though it's really a very clever exercise for your entire pelvic region. Your hips, your glutes, you stand with your feet slightly wider than shoulder width apart, knees soft and relaxed, not locked. Place your hands on your hips, slowly shift your weight to your right side, then rotate forward, moving weight across the front to your left, then around to the back, completing a circle. Imagine you're stirring a large pot with your hips, or moving a hula hoop in slow motion around your waist at 10 rotations in one direction, then 10 in the opposite direction. Here in America, most of us only use our hips in about 2 directions, bending when we sit, straightening when we stand, moving forward or backward when we walk. But the hip joint is a ball and socket joint. It's designed for movement in many different directions. When you don't use that full range, the joint capsule gradually stiffens, the muscles around it become unbalanced, and every step you take becomes less stable. Hip circles address all of this at once. They mobilize the joint capsule, strengthen the small stabilizing muscles, and improve proprioception, your body's sense of where it is in space. That a groundbreaking study from the University of Tsukuba followed 2,000 elderly people for 7 years. Those who did hip circles every day had a 51% lower likelihood of needing hip replacement surgery and 40% fewer falls requiring hospitalization. I remember a patient named Howard, 76 years old, who came to me with a very specific fear. "Doctor, I feel like every time I step sideways, my leg doesn't listen to me. Like the upper part of my body goes one way and my hips lag behind." We started him with hip circles, holding lightly onto the back of a chair. For the first 3 weeks, the movement was still quite small. By the 6th week, he could rotate his hips more freely without needing to hold on. After 3 months, he told me, "I don't feel that wobbly hip sensation anymore." An advanced version of this is to play with height. You can lower your center of gravity slightly, like you're sitting back a little bit, do 10 rotations, then stand up a bit higher and do 10 more. Each different height activates different muscle groups around the hip. If you want even more challenge, you can hold a small water bottle against your chest while doing the circles. Research shows that adding just half a kilogram of weight in front of you increases core activation by 20 to 25%. And now we come to the final movement, also the one I believe is the true life test for your body, the ability to get down on the floor and back up again. The Japanese call it Seiza transitions, moving from standing to kneeling in the Seiza position, then back up to standing. It sounds scary, especially if you've ever had knee problems or chronic back pain. But remember, we can adjust this for wherever you are right now. The full version works like this. You stand upright with your feet together. You step one leg back, lower that knee to the floor, then lower your other knee. Settle back onto your heels in the Seiza position. Knees bent, the tops of your feet flat on the ground. Come back up. You bring one foot forward into a lunging position, then push through that leg to stand back up. You alternate which leg leads each time. This movement requires you to coordinate so many different things at once. The strength in your thighs and glutes to control both the descent and the ascent, flexibility in your knees, hips, and ankles, your ability to maintain balance as your center of gravity moves up and down, and your nervous system constantly processing signals from your eyes, your inner ear, your feet. There was a famous study from Brazil showing this. The better people can perform. The sit down on the floor and stand up without using your hands test, the higher their average lifespan. The group with low scores had higher mortality rates during the follow-up years. They lived on average about 6 years less than the high-scoring group. Japanese researchers also measured leg strength and flexibility in elderly people who practice transitions daily. After several months, leg strength increased by 47%, ankle and knee flexibility improved by about 35%. And most importantly, the fall rate decreased by an average of 43% over 2 years. Now, the way to start this is not with the full version. You begin next to a sturdy chair or table. At first, you might only go down to a tall kneeling position, not sitting all the way back on your heels. You use your hand for light support. As you get stronger, you reduce that hand support to just your fingertips, then eventually no support at all. A patient of mine, a woman named Helen, was 79 years old. When I first described this movement to her, she shook her head. "That's impossible, doctor. I can't even remember the last time I sat down on the floor." It took us 3 weeks just for her to get comfortable with kneeling on one knee. 2 months later, she was able to get close to the size of position with cushions under her knees for comfort. 8 months later, she called me on the phone. "Yesterday, I sat down on the floor playing board games with my grandson, and I stood back up on my own. He looked at me like I was a superhero." That's a moment I'll never forget. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds wonderful, but isn't it too late for me to start? This is where I want to be honest with you, without any sugarcoating. Biology has a golden window. From around age 60 to 75, your body can still adapt incredibly well if you give it a reason to do so. Nerve pathways can still be rewired, muscles can still gain strength, joints can still improve their flexibility. After 75, that window doesn't close completely, but it gets narrower. Every improvement takes more time, and you need more patience. But that doesn't mean if you're 80 or 85 that you're done. I've seen patients in their 80s and 84 who improved significantly when they knew where to start and didn't give up. The problem isn't how old you are. The problem is, do you start or not? If you're still watching at this point, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, a year from now, how do I want my body to be different than it is today? Less afraid of falling? More flexible in how you move? Able to stand up from a chair without using your hands? Able to sit down on the floor and play with your grandchildren? These things don't come from wishes or luck. They come from small habits, repeated every morning. So how do you start without feeling overwhelmed? Don't try to do all 5 movements tomorrow. That's the quickest way to quit tomorrow. Do just one thing. Before your feet touch the floor, rotate your ankles. Each side, 10 rotations. Then flex and point your toes 15 times. That's 2 to 3 minutes total. The next week, add the shoulder movement. Sit up, squeeze your shoulder blades together, hold 5 seconds, release, repeat 15 to 20 times. Week 3, add the spinal waves. Week 4, add the hip circles. Just after about a month, you'll have a chain of 4 to 5 movements strung together, taking less than 20 minutes every morning. That if you failed at gym-based exercise before, I want you to try a different approach this time. Don't set the goal of exercising hard. Set the goal of not missing a single day for 30 days. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up. In my clinic, I often tell patients, don't think of this as exercise. Think of it as saying good morning to your body. Let me bring back those 2 scenarios I mentioned at the start. Scenario number 1. You finish watching this video, you nod along, you think it's great, then you let it slip away like every other video. A year from now, you might fall once or twice more. You start holding the arm of your chair more often. you begin avoiding stairs. And eventually you start thinking, maybe I shouldn't be living alone anymore. Scenario number 2. You pause this video once you're done watching. You set a reminder on your phone. 7 a.m., ankle rotations and shoulder squeezes. Tomorrow morning, you do it. It's not a lot. It's not hard. Just a few minutes out a week later, you add one more movement. A month later, your body starts to remember that every morning is a time for movement. 6 months later, you realize you don't need to hold on to your chair as much. A year later, maybe you'll write a comment for me. Doctor, I don't feel like I'm getting older every day anymore. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of myself back. The difference between those two scenarios isn't luck, genetics, or money. It lies in one very small decision. Do you start tomorrow or not? If you decided to start, tell me in the comments. Tomorrow I'm beginning with the name of the movement you're choosing: ankles, shoulders, spine, hips, or size up. I, Dr. Robert Ellis, will read it, and whenever I can, I will respond, encourage you, and walk alongside you. Thank you for spending time watching all the way to here. Please consider sharing this video with someone you love who's over 60. Sometimes a video like this is exactly the starting point someone needs to avoid a fall, avoid surgery, or avoid years of living in fear. Please hit subscribe if you want to get more content about senior health from a perspective that's both scientifically grounded and rooted in real-life experience. And remember, it's never too late to start treating your body with kindness. I'll see you tomorrow morning, in those 20 minutes that could change everything about the years ahead.